As times have changed, technology has advanced, and many other things have developed, students are dealing with higher workloads in college, which has negative impacts on them mentally. This, along with the increasingly high standards, cuts to education budgets, and the limiting of resources, are large contributions to student stress being so rampant. In the National Stress in America survey, an annual analysis by Harris Interactive for the American Psychological Association, 35% of young people polled since 2007 reported feeling more stressed this year compared with last year. The problem with this data is the fact that most people also don't feel like they can manage this stress well, and it's taking a toll on their bodies. With statistics like these, it's hard to ignore the immediate problem of stress in students. We asked ourselves how stress is being handled in our own college. We collected data and researched the issue to understand it better. We then decided to interview students within our college about how they deal with stress, and a psychology teacher who could give a professional viewpoint.
Okay, so in terms of stress affecting neurology, there's four main things. So firstly, stress affects the heart. So in chronic and in short-term stress, so short-term stress will induce increased heart rate, sweating, blood dilation, pupil dilation, and it can have quite a short-term effect on heart rate. Secondly, it affects digestion. So when students in particular are feeling stressed, they may either comfort eat, or likely the effects of stress would be to not be able to eat. So likely effects would be on the morning of an exam, students would be unable to digest anything, to eat anything, and if they did, it would probably make them feel a bit sick, which obviously then leads to they're likely to be more exhausted, fatigued, and kind of running on adrenaline throughout that exam period. So when students finish an exam, they're likely to feel quite exhausted, and therefore if they have an exam in the afternoon, the exam in the afternoon is likely to be less answered well than the exam in the morning because of this effect on digestion and being unable to eat. In terms of the body's response to stress, there's two responses. One is an acute response and one is a chronic response. So the acute response, most people know it as the fight and flight response, and this is where the body goes into an acute attack mode, really. So the things like heart rates will increase, pupils will dilate, all the things I spoke about before, in order to prepare the body to fight or flight. So this is where students will experience maybe butterflies before an exam, unable to eat, they may feel kind of hyped up, and that's because of adrenaline. So during the acute stress response, adrenaline is released, and that's what helps us to combat this kind of stress. And then the second response is more of a chronic stress response. So this is if a stress goes on for a particular period of time. So for example, students around this time of year are feeling stressed, and this is likely to continue until kind of well into June, when the exam season finishes. So this is considered a chronic stress, not a short-term stress. And this is characterised by the release of cortisol into the bloodstream. Teachers are quite good at recognising when students are stressed, and we know that this time of year is stressful. I think we do talk about stress quite a lot. I think we could do more. I think there could be maybe an assembly or something in tutor where teachers teach students about the effects of stress, what's happening to their body. I think that may be useful for some students. Also, I think possibly maybe meditation classes, or if teachers open their classrooms so that students have a more quieter space or just relax and focus before an exam, could be something that's helpful. I know that a lot of teachers do that anyway, so it would be a matter of students finding out which teachers would offer that and making use of that resource. But at the end of the day, it's students, the person that's feeling the stress themselves, that would need to manage it, so asking for help if you're stressed. Or feeling the effects of stress, and asking your teacher, what can I do to help relieve this stress, would be something that I would possibly recommend.
So what subjects do you study in session?
Biology, chemistry and maths.
And what qualification level did you study?
A-levels, all three.
And how would you personally say that you're affected by student stress?
I'm stressed 24/7. It's so bad sometimes. I can barely leave the house. But most of the time it's just a niggling feeling that everything's terrible. So,
What do you think could be done to combat student stress?
well, lighter workloads could help, but then again, the work needs to be done anyways. So, to be honest, there's not much else that can be done. Maybe easier access to counselling, methods that can be used to help combat stress, but those are already available, so it's just one of those things.
Do you feel enough is being done? And if not, why?
It's not that enough isn't being done, it's more that there's not enough to combat the amount of stress that people have. So, overall, yes, but also no.
What subjects are you studying?
60 credit media and 60 credit computing.
And what qualification level are these subjects?
BTEC. Yeah.
How would you say you're personally affected by student stress?
I'd say it affects how sort of my personal life, the hobbies I do, if I do hobbies at all, or how I treat the people around me while I'm dealing with work, college, essay. Yeah.
What do you think could be done to combat?
I think while there's quite a lot of awareness, I think just awareness won't do it enough. With all the campaigns going on about it, there's no sort of relief project or direct assistance that teachers.
So what do you think could actually be done?
I'd say maybe if teachers took more of a hands-on approach on talking to specific students rather than having the students reach out, because there's always a sort of barrier of pride where maybe if you just do the work, you won't have to talk to anyone about it.
And do you feel enough is being done, and if not, why?
I don't feel like it. I don't feel like enough's being done, and maybe because it's the lack of resources being used or just attention that's being given to it.
So how can we combat student stress? What more can be done to aid students in these issues? There are a few methods you can use to alleviate your problems. When studying, for example, students should take a rest every hour and a half to give their brain a break. You should also talk to someone so you're not alone in your studying and your stress. Some colleges are equipped with therapists that are there to help and will be understanding of the stresses that can affect students. You should never feel afraid to seek out help. These things, however, are only part of the solution. This problem will never end if we don't fix the underlying problems of budget cuts and increasingly high standards. Education should be gratifying, not tiring.